Welcome back to the Kind Athletic Podcast. This is episode 25. I'm Sam.
I'm Kellen.
And this week, we'll cover a little bit of the MLB postseason with the wild card round wrapping up a few days ago. The division round getting underway. And I think it's right now, at least I know it's about to change, but I think every series is tied 1-1. So
Yeah, I think
it's
you're
been a
right.
good series. Every team has played really well. It's just been kind of back and forth, which has been fun to watch, which you kind of want in the postseason. So I'm glad that's happening. Then we'll move into UW and how they beat Michigan this week. We'll talk a little bit about that. We would normally cover the Cougs, but they had a bye. So
They did have a bye. Much needed, I think.
yeah,
after
and
that
we
Boise
can
State
cover
game.
they're playing Fresno State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're going
So
to
we'll talk
Fresno
a little
in
bit about
California.
that,
Yeah.
which they're coming to Pac-12, so it will be a conference game next year.
No.
Or
2 years.
2 years,
26,
226.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yep.
kind of an important game just because they'll start to face them more often.
Yeah.
They'll move into the Seahawks since we didn't cover them last week with it being a Monday night game. We'll cover weeks 4 and 5.
Yep.
Unfortunately, those were not fantastic games.
Unless
but
you're not Seahawk
I
fans.
was gonna say it is what it is.
Then they were great games.
It's kind
for
of
you.
what we expected, but they overperformed the first 3 games, and then they just kind of like, are they good? And didn't look good.
Yeah, it's an interesting
So-
start to the season, I'll say
Yeah,
that.
kind of a tough way to start because we started really hot and then just obviously lost 2 games in a row. So,
Yep.
and then we're playing the 49ers, so not a great
On
way
Thursday,
to come
short
back.
Week. And I love that
So,
fact. We'll
yeah.
get into that, but I'm excited for it. Should be a good game.
It's going to be a tough run for us for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then like we do every week, we will end with a Christian Athlete Spotlight, which is mine this week. It's actually a former Mariner is the one I picked, kind of a fun one. And then we will end with a verse from each of us and then a quick prayer to get us going. But we will, since we just covered baseball, we'll start here with
that.
UW and WSU. So UW did beat Michigan,
Yep.
but kind of surprising. We'll see. I don't know if that really changes anything as far as what I think of the team. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a good win for them to have. I think it's just because moving to the Big Ten, they kind of should have beat the Cougs. Didn't not the game, but just like
I know what you're
going
saying.
into it.
They've kicked themselves
So
pretty much all year.
It was a good game for them to win, but honestly, their quarterback play has been atrocious from the Wolverines. So
yeah, they're such, even last year,
Yeah.
even with JJ McCarthy, such
but
a
at least
run-heavy.
McCarthy was at least a playmaker. So
Yeah,
like
he could do something.
He could operate in that offense, but I think it's Jack Tuttle and I'm not gonna say his last name, Alex O.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we talked about this before.
I'll hold my tongue on that one. I just read it and I was like, oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's just not great
just-
at all.
It's just weird. They're such
Yeah.
a run-first offense.
Like their running was fine.
they got 95
did what they
yards
needed.
out of Edwards, but it was still just, yeah. I don't. It's a very interesting offense. It's like
It really is.
there is the threat to the pass, but it's also like they don't ever do it.
No, they just run down your throat.
Yeah,
the entire time.
It's a weird team, and that's kind of why like the UW has played terrible to start this year.
Pretty much.
in my opinion.
Honestly, for them to have 3 wins, isn't
4.
It is 4
They're
now.
4-2.
So that's not like horrible.
No,
So-
obviously you only need 2 more,
Yeah.
and they should be they're going to make a bowl game. But it's like, I mean, okay, so you beat like your resume is not good for the
No, it was
for
like
the
Portland
UW.
State.
You have Weber State, Eastern Michigan. Who cares?
Oh, yeah.
The Apple Cup. Yes, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but you lost. I think Wazoo's a good team. I think Wazoo's probably about as good as UW is this year, in my opinion. I think we would play very well against a Michigan. I
Yeah.
also think, and again, I'm not trying to take this away from the UW.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think Michigan's that good. I
Well, they
think,
lost a lot.
that's what I
So,
mean. But the
yeah.
UW did too, and I agree. I don't think Michigan really, like when they were preseason, I think they were ranked like, I don't like 4 or 5
That's
or
a
something
stretch.
like that. Yeah, even at like 10, I was like watching them play. They are a good team,
Hmm.
but they're not a top 15 team. And I'm not taking
No.
that away from UW. That's not, the UW can't do anything to be like, oh, we beat a top 10. You did. You beat
Yeah.
it. That's what the,
I think more than the
So-
game itself, they beat a good program. That's what I think.
That's fair.
Is kind of for me.
Sure.
In their standing, because moving to the Big Ten, they're obviously
it's
kind
a
of a
huge
small
Big
fish.
Ten school.
So that's
Yeah.
why I was like, even
it's
if
a
the
statement
team
win.
is not good, the program is.
Yeah.
So that's more what I was.
it's a statement win,
excited for
especially
them,
with like
but-
USC losing to Minnesota, which again is like this is the top of the Pac-12 losing to arguably a middle of the pack Big Ten. I agree. I mean, obviously they smoked Northwestern and then they lost to Rutgers, which is still funny. I mean, they just had bad games. But they, for the first time, the UW to me, like I watched most of the game.
They actually put it like a decent game together.
Will Rogers actually played football for like the first time all season, like to where I watched him. I was like, okay, you're actually there.
Not bad.
The other massive thing for them, I believe this game, if it will load my things being a little slow, 2 penalties. 20
Oh, that's huge compared to the Apple Cup.
Just any of their games. All their, I mean, like Weber State, Eastern Michigan, they were terrible. The discipline looked a lot better out of them.
That's what they were seriously lacking
so
in the beginning of the season. So,
but I mean, again, am I sold that the UW's gonna be like, should they be ranked? I was like, people were like, oh, we should be ranked. I'm like, no, you should not at all. You've beaten one good team, and you again,
that's fair.
Should you have beat Rutgers? Yeah, probably. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Should you beat Wazoo? Yeah, probably. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Doesn't matter. You didn't.
And the thing is, too, they were down. So they did lead at the half. They led 14-10, but then they lost the lead in the third and then came back in the fourth. So it's not like I mean, yes, they won, but they didn't. But it wasn't a commanding victory to like establish them to be ranked. Is kind of what I mean. I agree with you on that. Yes, they won,
but it's not.
But it wasn't like
pretty.
It wasn't like 56-8.
Yeah,
or just something like that. And it was just like,
I mean, even their first half, they didn't look that good. Like they looked like the second half, each game they've looked better. But again,
they're slow out of the
if
gate.
you look at, if I go to, and I'm not trying to be biased because I just don't like them, but they need 2 more wins. They should get them. They go to Iowa.
That's going to be a good game.
That's going to be a good game. Iowa's been ranked this year. They lost to Iowa State, I believe. They're a good team. They go to number 18 Indiana the next week. That's a lot of traveling, first off. Indiana's a good team.
They screwed themselves by moving.
100%.
Yeah.
And then USC comes to town. I know USC, they dropped from like 11 out of the rankings, which to me is insane. USC is a very talented football team, and they should still be ranked. And I think Michigan's still ranked, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. That is
so
crazy.
Those next 3
are tough.
Maybe a win. Maybe. I mean, USC, I think you could. I mean, it's a rivalry. It's got that edge to it.
If they play like the second half, the whole game.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, really the fourth quarter. The third quarter wasn't like great, but they definitely.
The fourth quarter, they turned it on.
It was just a big, it was a big, like, whatever, head battle. But then you go, so maybe you get a win there, but then you go to Penn State, who's number 4. That's a loss. I mean, I would be, again.
Yeah, that is not looking good.
I said that I thought Michigan would come here and wipe the table, but that's just because UW's not looked good. Then you go to UCLA, or UCLA comes here. You should win that. The UCLA is not I mean, UCLA has snuck some games in here that I believe this year and played well, but you should beat them. And then you go down to Eugene and play Oregon. You're going to lose that game. That's a huge rivalry game. Oregon looks good. They've started to kind of click. 2 wins is like, out of these 6 games, is not a guarantee for me.
Yeah. That's what happens when you move to a way better conference.
Yeah. I mean, and again, even the teams that
not that big.
Even the teams that moved with you, UCLA, Oregon, USC, like USC and Oregon are better than you. UCLA, you probably should get, but we've also seen with the Pac-12 like last year, everyone was beating up. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, Utah's going to make Utah lost to Colorado. Oh, Colorado's going to make, Colorado lost to Arizona. Oh, Arizona's, it's like, that's how the Pac-12's always been, is they've always kind of been like semi-mediocre, but I don't know. I mean, like you said, the UW, their football program has not been.
It's good.
It was good. It's been, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
It had.
Well, it's like its peak right now until you go back to like the 90s with like Brunell. That was really good. But then other than that, like
it was a long.
Name me a player that's actually been good that's come out of it. Like a select
Warren
few.
Moon.
No, I'm talking about like now.
Oh, like right
from
now.
2000 to like 2010.
You have. I know the one. He's on. He's on the Buccaneers.
Danny Shelton.
No, who's the Buccaneers? The big.
No, Vita Vea.
Vita Vega.
Yeah, that's
Vita
what I was
Vega's a
thinking
monster.
Of. But other than that,
Buda Baker.
I'm sure there's some people, but I mean,
there's not a ton
for the most part.
Yeah, the only 2 off the top of my head is Buda Baker and then there was Terrence Ross was good.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was
not. Terrence Ross. Sorry, Terrence Ross is the basketball player.
It was Ross
who it is. Though. It's
the super fast guy. I know who it is.
But he only played for like a couple. I agree.
Yeah,
and I think the UW has the money and the potential. They're in. They basically own Washington. Washington's just not massive football hub. It's
No,
much more of like a
it's
baseball.
soccer, baseball.
Yeah. And even a little bit of basketball. Like, it's just a different.
Yeah, there is some. I guess I didn't know as much, but I definitely
there's
know
a
there
lot
is
of
basketball.
There is basketball. But I would just. It's hard because the UW was so bad. They're still the only team to never win a game in a regular season for the Pack. Losers.
Nice. Good stuff.
And then, so you have like they've been so bad, and then it took them a while. Like, Peterson kind of brought them back. I think he
Did
took
Jimmy
them.
Lake come after Peterson?
Who?
Jimmy Lake?
Yeah, so it was
Okay.
Peterson, and I
Peterson
think
pretty much built it.
he
and then,
took them to the final, the first ever football
yep,
playoff,
yep,
I think, and
yep.
they got smoked by Alabama.
Oh yeah.
And then he was
Yeah.
here for whatever 4 years or something, and he was fine. Like, he
Yeah.
had winning years, whatever. He went to a couple random bowl games, won them, whatever. He was fine. There was nothing. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, UW's the best, but they
Yeah.
were good. And then he left. Jimmy Lake took over, and he just took 20 steps backwards. Like, it was incredible how far backwards he went. The team struggled, and then DeBoer came in and took like about a season and a half to really kind of get the game.
He also had some really good recruits.
Yeah, 100%. He
So-
brought in, Penix and all the, everyone else. And then, and then obviously he took them to what they were last year, and now again, you're
kinda
just
just
going
back to
back
middle of the pack.
And it's the same thing that I would say with both schools, both Washington schools. There's not enough for how much money is in the state of Washington. None of it gets invested into sports.
Not really.
Which is, I'm okay with it. It doesn't. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'm like, if you're Paul Allen or Bill Gates money, who's from here, it's like, okay, what's $20 million to you? Nothing. Like, it's crazy. But both school, they just struggle to keep people. Like, look at Mike Leach with Wazoo. It's hard to keep him. DeBoer. Hey, if you get offered Alabama, and
You're
even
gonna
if you got
take it.
offered LSU or Ohio State or Michigan, like, there's just better schools there, and they don't have the financial capital to keep these guys. And it's just in
Yeah, I
the
don't
worst way.
think honestly, I don't think you're ever going to top Alabama though, or
No,
LSU,
100
or
maybe
Ohio
Georgia.
State.
Yeah, there's
Like,
there's
those-
10 schools that are that caliber.
They're just better.
Yeah.
and I
And-
don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that's the way it is.
These schools really, but like, okay, think of like the
they're
old
just born
Pac-12.
to like breed football
Yeah,
players down there.
100%.
So it's like that's just what it is.
and it's literally like,
so
if you think about the old Pac-12, like last year's, or whatever,
Yeah.
the only real school to me that can keep whoever they want, no matter what, is Oregon because of Nike.
They
have
got
so
money.
much money there, and they can recruit, they can NIL, they can,
and it's a different style of football, honestly, too.
It's different.
So it's more like
Yeah.
super quick
So-
offense,
I know, I agree.
different kind of defense than like you would think of the Alabamas, for example. Like
lot
it's a
more-
different breed
yeah,
of football.
Yeah, RPOs and
But-
ground and pound. So I don't know. So to me, it's like every school on the West Coast, really, besides Oregon's kind of a stepping stone for a lot of coaches.
Fair. And I mean, with like the transfer portal, as prolific as it is now,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get. I mean, you'll get some transfers, but you're also gonna lose people.
100%.
Like if you do get local talent and they are good,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose them.
100%.
So-
And I think that's like what you saw with DeBoer. I mean, like a lot of the offensive line from last year that was so good. I think one or two of them got drafted. And then
think
three of
they
them went,
did,
like
yeah.
two of them went back to Ole Miss, I think, where they're from. And then I think one of them followed him to Alabama.
Okay, yeah,
But
that's fair.
I mean, you couldn't keep, this record setting off. It's like all these people, and it's like, yeah, of course
Yeah.
you lost DeBoer, you lost a lot, but it's the same thing. And I think that does give you an edge. And I think Dickert has said that with Wazoo, with every game, especially like the Apple Cup. He was like, we just have an edge. We get guys that are overlooked by the UW or overlooked by Oregon. They're still 3-star, 4-star guys. They're good football players, but they're overlooked, and we have a chip on our shoulder. And so, it's just different, like in that aspect. And I think the UW kind of has that chip on their shoulder a little bit too. Like Will Rogers, he was a Mississippi State guy, and they kind of gave up on him, and now he's here trying to prove a point, but he hasn't really proved much. But
he's good.
He
hasn't
good.
played to his potential.
That's
think,
what I mean.
but
That's what I mean. Yeah, he is very talented. But so I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma. I think the UW should be able to pull out 6 wins, but one of them is going to have to be an upset.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Again, with like in hindsight, losing the Wazoo and the Rutgers game
That's
really killed
tough.
them. I mean, obviously it'd be 6-0 if they
Yeah.
won everything so far, but I didn't think anyone thought that they would do that.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
We'll see. I mean, should be an interesting end of the season. I don't know who they have. They go to Iowa next week.
Yeah. Yep.
Or
The
is
only
that
thing
next
that
week?
really
Yeah, 12.
matters though is that the Wildcats won.
Who's that?
This week?
Arizona?
Central, baby.
Oh my gosh, yeah, whatever.
Heck yeah.
We're doing this again.
I don't know what score was, but
I'm so happy for
they definitely won. So that's about
you might be the only podcast in the
thing.
world that actually talks about Central Washington ever.
The funny thing is I only look at the final score. That's all I look at. I don't watch the game. I don't do anything. I just need to know if they won or lost. Because then I can give them a shout.
It's incredible. I didn't even...
What a school.
Whatever. Yeah,
what a school.
Like
Thanks for listening to the Kinda Athletic podcast. Please like and subscribe to all our social media platforms and make sure to come back next week to hear more from the Kinda Athletic podcast.